Now it's time to talk about ethics. And one of the challenging things about ethics in our profession is that we're often making these decisions on deadline because it seems that we are always on deadline. So ethics, remember, is not the law. Ethics is a standard. And so it's about credibility and professionalism and integrity. Sometimes we might think of ethics as just guidelines, right? They're more like guidelines. Is a code of ethics for each of our professions and often for our individual employer. So I've got those posted on tracks, the ones for each of our major professions that you can check. Credibility really is the key to ethics, right? So it's about our credibility and using ethics to that standard. In advertising, truth is a standard, and taste and decency a standard. So when we look at advertising ethics, we often refer to the principles and practices of advertising ethics. And so I've got that posted for you, and it's a rather long code, as they often are. So look at this ad and think about how that falls into truth and taste and decency. So you may recall we looked at this before, the Bloomingdale's ad that says, "Spike your best friend's eggnog when they're not looking." They got a lot of attention for this. Adweek published a story about Bloomingdale apologizes for their weird, vaguely date-rapey holiday ad. So this was inappropriate and in poor taste. So it did violate the code of ethics when it comes to that concept. Also recall that in advertising, FTC laws do come into play. So we have ethics, but we also have laws. So you may be able to do something that fits within ethics and seems a little bit, there's a little bit much hyperbole sometimes, but the law says that you can't lie, right? You've got to prove things. So while truth is a standard from our code of ethics, in advertising, it's also a legal standard. And so in Red Bull, when it says it can give you wings, now we know giving you wings is, we can understand that as hyperbole, not really true. But when the ad said that it could improve a consumer's concentration and reaction speed, that's something that can be proven. And since they don't have the proof for that, that caused some trouble. It's like gum saying it kills germs. Is there proof for that? Now, if there's research, then that's different than they can point to. Or a model having the photo quite touched up for an anti-aging ad. So these are the types of things that attack our ethics credibility, but also can be law. So credibility with respect to PR. PRSA has the standard for the code of ethics for the PR profession, and you'll see that also honesty, truth, is an element in PR. So one of the challenges that we're finding, PR Daily, one of the major industry publications, has written about this, is there a study that millennials are unprepared to serve as the ethical conscience in PR. And essentially it's just saying that we haven't done enough education and we haven't worked enough to help new PR professionals understand ethics and the concerns that might be brought up. So if you recall the Kellyanne Conway problem with touting jewelry and such, this again, I'll bring up the woman who posted inappropriately, who was a PR professional. So PR ethics are extremely important, and your reputation rests on making good decisions. Now, it's interesting that sometimes there often is a difference between PR and journalism ethics, and that's just because we have different missions, we have different audiences. So here's an instance where if you have half the room being journalists and half the room being PR professionals, and advertising too, really, in the Stratcom, is we run into this challenge. This is a goodie bag, or a swag bag, which you may have heard. And these swag bags are handed out at all sorts of events. It's a very common thing for PR professionals to do, to put together a swag bag that has all kinds of goodies and to give it to people in, like, say, the Oscars. Everybody gets a swag bag. But at the White House correspondence party, there's a big correspondence dinner every year, and the correspondents are, of course, journalists. And so when they get this big swag bag, the question is, what do you do with it? Because from the journalist perspective, part of the code of ethics is to act independently, which means we don't take free things. That's one of the basic translations, right? Don't bribe me with something. Now, you may not be bribable for, a Clifford the Big Red Dog book or some nice fancy plastic silverware or even expensive hair products, but it's the appearance of a conflict of interest that is created. So from the PR professionals, should you create this? yes, of course, your clients would like this content to get out there. That's what you do. The journalists often take it back, and offices will have a sort of a free gift closet where you put all the things and then maybe they raffle them off and give the money to charity. It's that little bit of a conflict, but we generally resolve it in a friendly manner. This was a particularly big bag, so the Washington Post actually did this whole story on it, and it has these little red dots. If you're looking at it online, you can mouse over and see what these products are. So, in fact, the PR professionals really got good bang for their buck out of doing this swag bag. Again, credibility, right? Credibility. So, for the Code of Ethics for Journalists, which covers all journalists, and some organizations will specifically adopt just this as their code, and others will work from this. But seek the truth and report it. All of our professions have truth as a part of the Code of Ethics. And you'll also see that this course had act independently, which is where the issue of the swag bag comes up. NPR has quite a long ethics handbook, and so some organizations have lengthy handbooks, and theirs is published online, and you can see there's a whole chapter on accuracy, but there's also a chapter on so many elements of the Code of Ethics. So you can check out a number of these, which will be interesting to read. Now, we know that there's this whole concept of fake news and how that all works. You know, libel, ethics, and moral responsibility. So sometimes we'll do stories just about this to try to help people understand how just because there are ethical standards doesn't mean that there's any requirement that organizations operate under them, right? This is a voluntary professional standard. So what's the ethics with this? Now, this was Rihanna wearing this gown that was sort of invisible, sheer, but what's the ethics issue here? Can she wear that? Is she allowed to wear that? Of course she can. She can wear whatever she wants. The challenge is, as we shoot the red carpet, how do we handle something like this? So I've actually posted an exercise for you, so a separate mini lesson where you can look at some images and we can have a bit of a discussion there through this exercise. Also, do you recall the twerking video, right, where we looked at that? So consider the ethics of this, right? So many media outlets were duped when Jimmy Kimmel published this twerking video as if it were real, and media outlets ran the video before he posted the follow-up saying that it was a hoax. So lots goes into that. If media outlets had checked the copyright, that could have saved them so many different ways, and you really don't want to be duped. One of the things that we can do to help people understand our Code of Ethics is that we can write about it, right? We can do like Adweek did and wrote that story about the ad. We can declare our own ethics and let people know how we've encountered challenges. So John Burnett is an NPR correspondent. He lives in Austin, and he travels quite a bit through Mexico and Central America and South America. And he did a story on the narco corridos, the ballads of the Mexican cartels. And as a part of this story, somebody tried to bribe him. One of the artists, one of the singers, wanted to bribe him to play his music on American radio. And John tried to tell him, like, it's not that kind of a radio station. But the guy kept putting money in John's bag. So you can, I've posted this for you too, so you can listen to this. It's a good song about the narco corridos, but also it's interesting to hear John's story about old-fashioned payola and how he handled that. All right, ethics, extremely important across our professions.